The Netherlands, known as the Sea Charioteer, saw its rise and fall depicted in the epic and poignant film Admiral. Towards the end of the First Anglo-Dutch War, the Dutch suffered a crushing defeat at the Battle of the Gabbard, completely losing control of the English Channel. The British Navy then imposed a strict blockade on the Dutch coast, effectively choking the Dutch economy and causing it to collapse instantly. The populace faced severe food shortages, and riots broke out in major cities due to hunger, pushing social order to the brink of collapse. To break this deadlock, the renowned Dutch naval commander Marten Tromp took command, leading over 100 warships into a desperate battle with the English fleet off the coast of Scheveningen. This intense sea battle attracted many nearby Dutch residents as spectators, including the family of Michiel de Ruyter. As a fierce warrior under Tromp's command, de Ruyter had distinguished himself in previous wars, growing into a skilled and renowned captain. During the battle, the flagship of the commander-in-chief was heavily surrounded by enemy ships and found itself in dire straits. Noticing this, de Ruyter immediately ordered his ship to leave the combat zone and rushed to Tromp's flagship at full speed. Trapped in the encirclement, Tromp displayed extraordinary courage and the composure of a great commander. Calmly directing his soldiers to cut the ropes and lower the broken masts, he then ordered a fierce cannonade, vowing to drive the British back to their islands. With exceptional bravery and superior seamanship, de Ruyter broke through the enemy blockade and successfully reached the flagship, accurately striking an English warship. Witnessing this, Tromp was deeply moved. However, disaster struck unexpectedly. Tromp was shot by a musketeer hidden in a nearby mast and fell heavily onto the deck. Despite his injury, Tromp mustered his last strength to order his men to hoist signal flags, urgently summoning all captains to the flagship. Seeing this, de Ruyter hesitated no more. He jumped ship and, using a small boat, managed to approach the flagship in an attempt to escort the commander back to shore for treatment. Unfortunately, the wind direction was extremely unfavorable, making it difficult to return. In the last moments of his life, Tromp left his last words.
Windstaatsverkeer. Net als de heren politici. Draai ook altijd met de wind mee. Praten nou. Mijn mannen hebben iemand nodig zoals jij. Iemand die zijn eigen koers vaart. Kan jij? Michiel.
In this way, this core figure of the Dutch Navy closed his eyes forever. This battle resulted in heavy losses for the Dutch, though the British gained little advantage. Ultimately, both sides reluctantly lifted the blockade and agreed to a truce. After the defeat at the Battle of Scheveningen, de Ruyter, disheartened, left the military and returned to his hometown. De Ruyter had been married to his wife for 15 years, but she had lived alone for 14 of those years. Nevertheless, she bore him 3 children. De Ruyter felt that the meager salary offered by the government was not worth risking his life for. Meanwhile, in the Dutch States General de Witt, with the support of some politicians, was successfully elected as the Grand Pensionary, becoming the de facto leader of the nation. At that time, the Netherlands was in the Republican era, officially known as the Dutch Republic. Within the parliament, 2 major opposing factions had formed. One faction was the Republican Party, mainly composed of the merchant class, while the other was the Orangist Party, centered around Prince Willem III of Orange. To suppress his opponents and consolidate his power, de Witt announced that the United Provinces would no longer be governed by stadtholders and significantly reduced the size of the army. He firmly believed that the Netherlands' primary trade came from the sea, and thus strongly advocated for the development of the Navy to protect the vital maritime trade of the Netherlands. De Witt also delivered an impassioned speech, emphasizing that both factions should set aside their differences, unite, and work together for the nation's interests. The Lion of the Netherlands holds 7 arrows in its claws, symbolizing the unity of the 7 provinces. Ultimately, the bill he proposed was smoothly passed in Parliament. Not long after, Oliver Cromwell, the Lord Protector of England, passed away. The monarchy was restored, and Charles II ascended to the throne. Due to years of internal strife and frequent foreign wars, England was already deeply in debt and on the verge of bankruptcy. The prosperous Netherlands naturally became a target of England's ambitions. Thus, the Second Anglo-Dutch War was imminent. Both sides engaged in several large-scale, high-intensity battles at sea. In the Battle of Lowestoft, the Netherlands suffered a defeat, losing a large number of warships and soldiers. From this point on, the Netherlands completely lost its advantage at sea. Witnessing this tragedy, Anna was extremely anxious. She persuaded de Ruyter to lead the navy, arguing that if the country could not be preserved, what was the point of staying at home? The Orangist party attempted to take advantage of the Netherlands' defeat by appointing the son of the former naval admiral Cornelis as the new admiral. De Witt saw through their intentions and did not want to allow the Orangist party's power to grow as a result. Thus, he firmly rejected this proposal. He emphasized that the esteemed title of admiral must be earned through merit and not through hereditary means. Later, de Witt sought out de Ruyter, who had high prestige in the military and was Tromp's designated successor, sincerely hoping that he would lead the Dutch Navy. With Anna's patient persuasion, de Ruyter ultimately took a solemn oath in Parliament and assumed the position of admiral. With his extensive experience in naval warfare, de Ruyter knew that relying solely on the existing escort ships would not be enough to defeat the British. He decisively decided that new warships must be specifically designed and built, and he boldly changed the traditional Dutch method of arming merchant ships with cannons, instead adopting the strategic and tactical approaches of the British Navy. After a period of careful preparation and construction, several large warships, led by the De Zeven Provinciën, were completed and held sea trials. The 16-year-old Prince Willem III of Orange was invited to attend. During the conversation, everyone learned that the British had sent a fleet to impose a blockade on Dutch merchant ships. The situation was extremely urgent, and they needed to take swift action to stop the enemy. In June 1666, the famous 4 Days Battle broke out between England and the Netherlands. De Ruyter commanded the Dutch fleet and headed straight for the English coast. Near the waters of Flanders, de Ruyter encountered the British fleet led by Monk. Before the battle began, de Ruyter repeatedly urged his officers to maintain formation and adjust their sailing direction flexibly, according to the wind changes. He himself took command from the flagship De Zeven Provinciën and personally directed the Dutch fleet to form a single line. Upon seeing the Dutch formation, Monk was confident and prepared to defeat them with his superior equipment. After both sides opened fire, the Dutch ships, being upwind, were not harmed by the British cannonballs. Seizing the opportunity, de Ruyter ordered a counterattack, and with the favorable wind, the British ships were continuously pounded by cannon fire. As the battle continued, de Ruyter keenly noticed that the British vanguard was moving faster than the central division, causing a gap in the British formation. He immediately ordered his fleet to cut through the British formation and quickly move to the other side. The Dutch Navy successfully surrounded the British, leaving Monk in disbelief. As the battle raged on, the British fleet suffered heavy losses and was forced to retreat. During these 4 days of intense fighting, the British Navy lost 23 warships, with nearly 5,000 casualties or captured, marking one of the rare defeats in British naval history. However, although the Dutch achieved victory, they did not completely destroy the enemy fleet. On the other side, Willem was dancing with a nobleman, and both of them were dressed in costumes designed for upper-class men. At this moment, Lord Kievit brought news of the Dutch Navy's great victory. Although Willem was delighted, he couldn't help complaining. He knew very well that he had the status of Prince of Orange, but had done nothing. Lord Kievit subtly reminded Willem of his identity as the nephew of King Charles II of England. This remark instantly awakened Willem, giving him a new idea. This man was King Charles II of England, and it was he who dug up Cromwell's body and chopped off his head and placed it on the roof of the church for 25 years. Soon Willem came to Buckingham Palace to meet Charles II, but the other party always looked down on his nephew. Willem hoped that Charles II would help him gain power. Charles II, however, offered to help Willem become King of the Netherlands, but on the condition that he would divide the entire Netherlands with France. He even offered Willem a barren piece of land in South Holland, claiming it would fulfill Willem's family mission. At this moment, Charles II's wife, Catherine, appeared. Catherine was a Portuguese princess with considerable influence. After hearing Charles II's arrangement, Willem was furious and declared that he would never divide his country. The negotiation between uncle and nephew broke down. After the Dutch victory, De Witt became even more convinced of the correctness of his decision to downsize the army and develop the navy. He decided to reduce pension expenditures to build more warships. However, before the policy could be implemented, the British attacked again. In July 1666, De Ruyter once again led the fleet into battle against the British in the St. James's Day battle, known in the Netherlands as the 2 Days Battle. In this battle, he employed the same tactics as before, and the battle initially went smoothly. However, Cornelis, eager for merit, disregarded the flagship's orders and pursued the British ships on his own, causing a significant defensive gap in the Dutch fleet. Monk seized the opportunity and quickly changed course, cutting through the Dutch formation. The tactic succeeded, and De Ruyter was powerless to change the outcome. The Dutch Navy suffered a heavy defeat, losing 20 ships, and was forced to retreat. After the battle, De Ruyter decisively dismissed Cornelis from his post, angrily accusing him of betraying his trust, insulting his father's honor, and bringing shame to the Tromp family. After the battle, De Witt met with De Ruyter to discuss their next plan. De Witt suggested that the Dutch Navy should sail to the Medway River. Since the British fleet was at Chatham, they could reach inland in just 2 days with favorable winds. However, this plan carried significant risks, and De Ruyter did not agree.
Hoe staat het met die speciale zeesoldaten die je aan het opleiden bent? Misschien een goed moment om ze te testen.
Een slecht moment. Zelfs zulke mannen kun je toch niet vragen om.
When Anna returned home, she found De Ruyter preparing to leave. She asked her husband where he was going, but received no response.
Ik zal mijn gedachten zijn bij de Admiral de Ruyter.
Voor mijn man.
Ik weet niet waar. U weet toch waar ze zijn? Voor mijn zoon. Voor mijn zoon. Voor mijn man.
Anna took the letters given to her by those women and went to Johann's house. She wanted to know where De Ruyter and those men had gone. Reluctantly, Johann told Anna that they had gone to the Medway River in London. During the Second Anglo-Dutch War, Dutch soldiers executed a classic and successful surprise attack. Under the cover of night, they climbed through tunnels, silently eliminating the patrolling guards, and then waved torches to signal. Comrades hiding nearby approached in small boats with their bows ablaze and quickly jumped into the water to escape. Instantly, a massive fire engulfed the ships in the harbor. Even the British flagship, the Royal Charles, was taken by the Dutch as a trophy back to Amsterdam. Upon hearing this, Charles II was furious, but with his fleet destroyed and the British Royal Navy's combat power severely weakened, he had no choice but to accept all of Holland's demands and sign the Treaty of Breda. The Second Anglo-Dutch War ended in British defeat, and the Netherlands enjoyed a brief period of peace. However, Charles II was not willing to accept defeat. He allied with France and launched an attack on the Netherlands. After signing the Treaty of Dover with England, Louis XIV assembled a massive army of over 100,000 men and aggressively attacked the Netherlands. Due to De Witt's previous significant reduction of the army, the Netherlands had almost no troops to defend against the French invasion. The Orangist party took the opportunity to incite the public against the Republicans, hoping that Willem III could organize an army and regain power. In 1672, the Franco-Dutch War broke out, and the French army swiftly occupied large areas of Dutch territory. Public dissatisfaction with the Republicans reached its peak, strongly demanding De Witt's resignation and the transfer of power to Willem III. To completely eliminate De Witt's influence, the Orangists falsely accused De Witt's brother of treason and arrested and interrogated him. At night, De Witt went alone to the prison to rescue his brother, only to find it was a carefully planned conspiracy. The purpose was to use the public's anger to get rid of the two. Soon, angry people gathered on the streets and captured the De Witt brothers. The crowd denounced them as traitors who sold out their country and beat them without trial. Ultimately, De Witt and his brother were brutally killed, and their bodies were dismembered. Unfortunately, De Ruyter was unable to save the two men. Because of his close association with De Witt, De Ruyter was also seen as a traitor by the Republicans, and the mob tried to seize him to vent their anger. Unable to change anything, De Ruyter had no choice but to flee the scene in a panic. After inciting the crowd to eliminate De Witt, the Orangists shamefully displayed his body upside down in the square and even hired an artist to record the scene. Ministers advised Willem III to eliminate De Ruyter and completely eradicate the Republican faction, but Willem III refused. He knew that De Ruyter was still needed to confront the British. After ascending to power, Willem III, against all advice, decided to breach the dikes to halt the French advance. Everyone looked at Willem in disbelief upon hearing his decision. Willem's actions completely disregarded the safety of tens of thousands of civilians downstream. In his view, it was only right to sacrifice lives for one's country. To counter the British naval threat, he called upon De Ruyter to lead the fleet in defending the nation. Despite his deep hatred for these people, De Ruyter had no choice but to reluctantly agree for the sake of the country and the greater good. In August 1673, the Dutch fleet confronted the combined Anglo-French forces near the Texel Island. The Anglo-French forces planned to break through the defenses and directly land on Dutch soil. After carefully analyzing the situation, De Ruyter anticipated the enemy's intentions and decided to turn the tables. He ordered Cornelis to deliberately expose a weakness. De Ruyter instructed him to break formation and lure the enemy. As the battle began, Cornelis engaged the enemy ships as planned. The French commander indeed noticed the flaw in the Dutch fleet and quickly advanced. De Ruyter, with a few ships, retreated toward the shore, further luring the enemy. The French army fell into a trap, and when approaching the coast, the ships suddenly hit the seabed and ran aground. The Dutch ships, however, had a shallower draft and were able to pass through the shoal smoothly. The Dutch fleet then launched a fierce attack on the Anglo-French forces, causing chaos in their formation. After only a few rounds, the French abandoned their allies and retreated, leaving the British to struggle under the Dutch assault. Ultimately, the Dutch achieved victory in the Battle of Texel, temporarily relieving the kingdom's crisis. Afterward, the Orangists began a large-scale purge of Republican politicians. Disheartened, de Ruyter submitted his resignation to Willem III and angrily condemned him for inciting the mob to kill de Witt. The two had a heated argument, with Willem III believing that de Ruyter was not on his side. To eliminate de Ruyter, Willem III ordered him to go to the Mediterranean to fight the French, providing him with only a few ships, clearly intending for him to die. Willem also threatened de Ruyter, suggesting that his family might suffer accidents if he refused. For the sake of his family's safety, de Ruyter had no choice but to reluctantly agree. In April 1676, de Ruyter led a small Dutch fleet to the Mediterranean to battle the French. The French commander was incredulous upon seeing only a small portion of the Dutch warships. After a fierce battle, de Ruyter was unfortunately wounded and died. The French held great respect for this naval admiral revered throughout Europe, saluting him together and allowing the Dutch to escort de Ruyter's body back to their country. Meanwhile, Willem III married Mary II of England and later became the King of England through this connection. After de Ruyter's body was returned to the Netherlands, Willem III held a grand and solemn funeral for him. At the same time, Anna received applause from everyone as she passed through the crowd. After a solemn ceremony, she was heartbroken and wept bitterly in front of her husband's coffin. With the passing of the legendary naval admiral de Ruyter, the glorious era of Dutch maritime dominance came to a definitive end.